Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The slap echoed through the cathedral like a gunshot, silencing the organ, the weeping relatives, and the very air in the room. It wasn't a slap of passion, but of dismissal. Thomas, the man I was supposed to marry in the next 5 minutes, stood over me where I had fallen to the marble floor, his hand still stinging from the impact, his handsome face twisted into a sneer that shattered the illusion of the last 2 years. "Look at you," Thomas spat, his voice projecting clearly to the hundreds of guests in the pews. "Pitiful. Did you really think I would bind my soul to a weak, scentless Omega like you? A nobody with no name, no money, and no spine?" He turned, extending a hand to the slender, smirking youth stepping out from the front row. "My own step-cousin, Elian. I'm an alpha of the Sterling lineage. I need a partner who can advance my standing, not a charity case I picked up off the street." The guests gasped, but it was theatrical shock. I could hear the titters, the whispers of the elite mocking the poor, trembling groom left at the altar. My veil was torn, my cheek burned, and my heart hammered against my ribs. But as I looked up through the lace, staring at the man who had sworn to love me yesterday, something inside me didn't break. Clicked. 2 years. 2 years I had played the role of Julian Vance, the orphan, the struggling barista, the submissive little Omega who was just so lucky to be noticed by the heir of the Sterling shipping empire. I had suppressed my pheromones with illegal blockers that made my veins ache. I had lowered my eyes when I wanted to gouge theirs out. I had lived a life of beige mediocrity to escape the blood-soaked crimson of my birthright. I wanted a simple life. I wanted to be loved for me, not for the terrifying weight of my family name. And this was my reward. I slowly pushed myself up. My knees didn't shake. The trembling stopped. The silence in the cathedral shifted from awkward tension to something heavier. A drop in barometric pressure. The air grew cold, thick and suffocating. "Thomas," I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried a resonance that made the alpha flinch. "You are making a mistake. Not because you are cheating, but because you didn't check who you were cheating on." Thomas laughed, wrapping an arm around Elian's waist. "And what are you going to do, Julian? Cry to your non-existent parents? I own this city. My security is at the doors. Take your trash and leave before I have you thrown out." "You don't own this city, Thomas," I sighed, reaching up to unclasp the suffocating lace collar of my white suit. I ripped the veil from my head and let it drift to the floor. "You just rent space in it, and the landlord is overdue for an eviction." I closed my eyes and let the mental barrier drop. The effect was instantaneous. The scent blockers, already wearing thin from the stress, shattered under my will. My true pheromones flooded the cathedral. It wasn't the smell of milk and honey, or cut flowers, or any of the delicate scents usually associated with Omegas. It was the scent of nightshade, gunpowder, and frozen gin. It was a scent so potent, so dominating, that the Omegas in the front row whimpered and clutched their chests, and even the betas felt their knees buckle. It was the scent of a predator. What is this?" Thomas stammered, his face draining of color as he stumbled back, the oppressive aura making it hard for him to breathe. You're a dominant Omega." "I am Julian Moretti," I stated, my voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "Head of the Moretti Crime Syndicate, keeper of the southern ports, and the man who holds the debt on every single asset your family thinks it owns." Thomas's eyes bulged. "Moretti? That's a myth. The Moretti heir disappeared years ago." "I took a sabbatical," I said dryly, dusting off my white trousers, "to see if humanity was worth saving. Spoiler alert, it's not." Before Thomas could respond, the massive oak doors at the back of the cathedral didn't just open. They exploded inward. Splinters of ancient wood showered the rear pews. Through the dust and debris, 3 silhouettes emerged, framed by the blinding afternoon sun and the torrential rain that had just begun to fall outside. They walked in perfect synchronization, their heavy boots thudding against the marble like the drums of war. The three alphas. On the left was Dante, the eldest brother, 6'5" of pure muscle scar tissue, wearing a black suit that strained against his shoulders. He held a jagged combat knife in one hand, spinning it lazily. His scent was scorched earth and iron. On the right was Cashin, the strategist. He adjusted his rimless glasses, his face a mask of icy indifference. He carried nothing but a tablet, yet the way he tapped the screen terrified people more than Dante's knife. His scent was old parchment and cyanide. And in the center was Valerius, the youngest, the wildest. He was grinning, a manic, shark-like smile that promised violence. He was dragging something, or rather someone, by the collar. The head of Thomas's security detail, unconscious and bleeding. "Sorry we're late, Fratellino," Valerius called out, his voice cheerful and terrifying. "Traffic was a bitch. So we bought the highway." The guests were screaming now, scrambling over pews to get away from the aisle. The Moretti brothers ignored them, walking straight toward the altar. The pressure in the room was now catastrophic. 3 prime alphas and 1 dominant omega. The air was so thick with dominance it tasted like metal. Thomas was hyperventilating. Elian had already fainted, sliding unnoticed to the floor. "Stay back," Thomas shrieked, backing up until he hit the altar. "Security. Police. The police are currently directing traffic for our convoy," Cashin said smoothly, not breaking stride. "And your security is indisposed." They reached the steps of the altar. Dante stepped up first, towering over Thomas. He leaned in, sniffing the air near Thomas's neck, then recoiled with a grimace. "He smells like cheap cologne and desperation," Dante growled, looking at me. "Julian, this is what you left the mansion for? This insect." "I wanted a normal life, Dante," I said, walking past him to stand face to face with Thomas. "I wanted to know what it was like to be powerless." I reached out, grabbing Thomas by the lapels of his expensive tuxedo. He was an alpha, biologically stronger than me, but under the crushing weight of my brother's pheromones and my own unleashed aura, he was paralyzed. "And how did it feel?" Valerius asked, hopping onto the altar and swinging his legs like a child. "Boring," I whispered to Thomas. "And disappointing." "Julian, please," Thomas wept, the arrogance completely evaporated. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with the snot running from his nose. "I didn't know. I love you. We can fix this. The wedding is paid for. We can still—" I silenced him with a finger to his lips. "Shoo. You embarrassed me, Thomas. You made me kneel. Do you know the only people I kneel for? God." Thomas squeaked. "God doesn't come to my neighborhood," I said. "I kneel for no one." I released him and he slumped against the altar. "Cashin," I said, turning to my brother. "What is the status of the Sterling Corporation?" Cashin tapped his tablet once. "As of 30 seconds ago, the bank has recalled their loans. The stocks have been shorted by our shell companies. And I've just leaked the evidence of his father's embezzlement to the federal agencies. They are bankrupt. Actually, they are worse than bankrupt. They are Moretti property." Thomas let out a strangled sob. "Dante," I continued. Dante stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "Do I kill him?" "No," I said, smoothing my hair back. "That's too easy. He likes status so much. Let him live without it. Strip him. Throw him out into the street. Let him see how the nobodies survive." Dante grinned. He grabbed Thomas by the back of the neck. Thomas screamed as he was dragged down the aisle, his tuxedo tearing, his dignity left in tatters on the sacred ground. I turned to the congregation. The hundreds of socialites, business partners, and fake friends were frozen, terrified that breathing too loud would attract the attention of the Moretti clan. "The wedding is cancelled," I announced calmly. "However, the reception food is already paid for. I suggest you all go eat. And if I hear a single whisper of disrespect about my family," I let my eyes flash, my pheromones flaring one last time in a wave of dark, intoxifying threat. I will burn your houses down while you sleep. They nodded frantically. Let's go home, I said to my brothers. Wait! A deep voice cut through the air. It wasn't one of my brothers. The voice came from the shadows of the choir loft, deep and resonant, vibrating with a power that rivaled even Dante's. A man stepped out of the shadows. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that cost more than the church itself. His hair was silver blonde, his eyes the color of jagged ice. He walked with a cane, not out of necessity, but as a weapon. Lysander Blackwood, the Tsar of the Northern Territories. The only man the Moretti family treated with caution. My brothers instantly bristled. Dante's hand went to his knife. Valerius jumped off the altar, his playfulness gone. Blackwood, Cashin hissed. You weren't on the guest list. I do enjoy a good tragedy, Lysander said, his eyes locked on mine. He ignored my brothers completely, descending the stairs with a predatory grace. He stopped 3 feet from me. The tension in the room shifted. This wasn't the familial protection of my brothers. This was something else. A clash of titans. Alpha against Omega. Lysander looked at me, really looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. I knew the Sterling boy was an idiot, he said, his voice a low rumble. But I didn't realize he was blind. Omega boss hiding in sheep's clothing. Did you come here to mock me, Lysander? I asked, crossing my arms. My pheromones lashed out at him, testing his defenses. He didn't flinch. Instead, he inhaled deeply, a look of dark satisfaction crossing his face. On the contrary, I came to collect a debt. I owe you nothing. Your father did, Lysander said, taking a step closer, invading my personal space. My brothers stepped forward, but I held up a hand to stop them. Before he passed, he promised to unite the South and the North. A marriage alliance. But he said his son was delicate, unfit for the world of wolves. Lysander reached out, his gloved hand brushing a stray lock of hair from my forehead. His touch was electric, sending a jolt straight to my core that Thomas had never achieved in 2 years. He lied, Lysander murmured. You aren't delicate, Julian. You are magnificent. My breath hitched. And, Lysander smiled, a dangerous, possessive curve of his lips. Since you are currently single, I am reinstating the contract. You think I'll marry you just because of a contract? I scoffed, though my heart was racing. I just escaped one prison. I'm not walking into another. Not a prison, Lysander said softly. He dropped his cane and took my hand, raising it to his lips. His eyes burned with an intensity that promised chaos and ecstasy in equal measure. A partnership. You want to rule the South? Good. I rule the North. Together, we don't just evict the tenants of this city, Julian. We burn the city down and build a castle on the ashes. He kissed my knuckles. His scent hit me then. Cedarwood, dark chocolate, and rain. It wrapped around my nightshade scent, not fighting it, but dancing with it, completing it. Soulmates. The realization struck us both at the same time. His pupils dilated. My knees went weak for real this time. I'm expensive, Blackwood, I whispered, trying to maintain my composure. I have deep pockets, he replied, his gaze dropping to my lips. My brothers are insane. I'll buy them toys. I have a bad temper. I find it inspiring. Lysander released my hand but didn't step back. He turned to the stunned audience, to the empty space where Thomas had stood, and then to my brothers. Gentlemen, Lysander said to Dante, Cashin, and Valerius, you can put the weapons away. I'm not here to fight the family. I'm here to join it. Dante looked at Cashin. Cashin shrugged, calculating the odds. Valerius just laughed. He's got guts. Valerius grinned. I like him. Can we keep him, Julian? I looked at Lysander, the wolf of the north, the man who scared monsters, and he was looking at me like I was the only thing in the world worth conquering. I suppose, I said, a small, genuine smile touching my lips for the first time that day. But if you ever cheat on me, Lysander. Julian, he said, leaning down to whisper in my ear, his voice dropping to a growl that made my toes curl. If I have you, why would I ever look at anyone else? You are the storm I've been waiting for. He offered me his arm. Shall we go? He asked. I believe we have an empire to reorganize. I took his arm. The white suit of the victim was gone, replaced by the stride of the boss. I looked back at the altar one last time, the graveyard of my naivety, and then walked forward into the rain, flanked by 3 deadly brothers and 1 dangerous husband-to-be. Thomas wanted a wedding to remember? I gave him one. And that is how the Omega who was meant to be a sacrifice became the king who burned the altar. If you enjoyed seeing Julian take his rightful place, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments. If you were Julian, would you have let the brothers finish Thomas off? Or is living in poverty a worse punishment? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,